everyone, to another Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video, wherever you are, whatever you may be doing. Thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd Family part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. If you jump on here live here on this Thursday evening, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section down below. Make sure to give the video a like, a thumbs up. If you have not yet subscribed, please do so and share the video on all social media platforms. Believe it or not, tonight's video is going to be a little bit different. I haven't wrote anything down. I'm not even going to do a dad joke in tonight's video, and I usually do a dad joke in every single video, but not tonight. Typically, on Thursday during football season, I preview all the college games coming up that weekend. But for one, I don't like getting caught in a routine because then people think you're, boring and predictable and monotonous. And for two, my high school football coverage for the year is over with. So I want to talk about all the games upcoming this weekend in tomorrow night's video. Tonight, this video could last a long time, and it may not last long at all, depending on how many people come on here and chat and leave a comment as we go. But tonight's video, I've got some questions for you, and maybe changed in the last few hours. Honestly, I haven't looked. I'm a busy man with my beautiful wife and our kids, so I have not looked in 4 or 5 hours. But last I looked, Lane Kiffin, as of right now, is still the head coach at Ole Miss. If something's changed in the last few hours, then this video becomes pointless. But let's say he is still the head coach at Ole Miss. This is not going to be a college football head coaching carousel video. I'll do one of those in the off season like I do every year. Might even do two because there's going to be so many coaching changes this off season. But tonight's video is strictly about Lane Kiffin because this whole thing is very entertaining, very interesting, very strange, and very weird. And what I mean by that is supposedly the Ole Miss AD has told Lane Kiffin that he has until Thanksgiving, which is 1 week away. Hey there, Chesley. Glad to have you here on this Thursday night to give an answer to Ole Miss as far as is he staying or is he going. Hey there, Pinky Toka. Glad to have you here. And hey there, Fest. Glad to have you here. And Pinky Toka and Fest, I think it's the first time I've seen y'all's names in the comment section. If it is y'all's first time being here, for whatever reason made you stop by the channel tonight, thank you very much, and feel free to give the video a like, a thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel, and share the video on all social media platforms. Tonight I'm talking specifically about Lane Kiffin. Toka, thank you for asking, but supposedly the Ole Miss AD has told Lane Kiffin he has until Thanksgiving to give an answer on if he's staying or going. And if he has not given an answer by Thanksgiving, then Ole Miss says they're going to fire him. Okay, if Lane Kiffin beats Mississippi State, he'll have 50 wins in his first 5 seasons at Ole Miss, which has never been done in the history of that program. There's never been a coach win 50 games in his first 5 seasons. If you're Ole Miss, how stupid do you look to fire a coach that's obviously the best coach you've ever had, gets you to 50 wins in 5 years, and you fire the guy? That makes you look like an absolute idiot. Hey there, 5972. Glad to have you here. Hey there, the real Riley. Glad to have you here. And hey there, Kevron. Glad to have you here. Hey there, Coco. Glad to have you here. Glad to see all of y'all in the comments section. But at the same time, also, if you're Florida and Ole Miss, how long do you wait? Because supposedly he's the top choice on both teams' list. He has not told either one of them yes or no, but supposedly LSU and Florida are both after Lane Kiffin, and he's their top choice. So if you're Florida and LSU, how long do you wait? Because what if Lane Kiffin says, well, my team's about to go to the playoffs, so I'll talk to y'all after the playoffs. And then the playoffs end, and then Lane Kiffin says, nah, you know what? Thank you, Florida. Thank you, Ole Miss, but I mean LSU, but I think I'll stay where I am. Well, then all of a sudden, every big time coach has now been hired from all the other open vacancies. So now, if you're Florida and LSU, you're stuck with the rest of y'all because all the big time coaches have already got a job because they're not going to wait because they think Lane Kiffin is going to Florida. Lane Kiffin is going to LSU. Hey there, James. Glad to have you here. And I think it would still be a living room, but I like that question, James. So it's kind of peculiar in both ways because if you're Ole Miss, you're an absolute idiot of an AD if you fire the coach who has done more for your program in 5 years than anybody ever has in the history of the school. But if you're LSU in Florida, do you sit back and wait and hope he comes there? Because even if he does go, he can only go to one school, not both. Would Lane Kiffin prefer Florida or would he prefer LSU? Hey there, Emmy. Glad to have you here. And hey there, Ava. Glad to have you here. I think it's the first time I've seen y'all's names in the comment section. If it is, thank y'all for being here tonight. For whatever reason made you stop by the channel, feel free to give the video a like, a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share the video on all social media platforms. So this whole thing is very, very interesting, and I still find it odd that all these schools, want Lane Kiffin. First of all, he's never stayed anywhere more than a handful of years. So even if he does go to Florida or LSU, how do we know that he'll be their coach in the next 5 years? Because he's never stayed anywhere for a long period of time. And second of all, yes, the man turns programs around, but he has still never won an important game. So I don't know why you want a guy that has not proven he can win a meaningful game. Can he make your program better? Absolutely. But we know how fans are. You want to get better until you get better. And then when you get better, getting better ain't good enough. Once you get to 10 wins, you're not satisfied. You want 11. That's just how fans are. So if you're Florida and LSU, you might think you're so bad right now that you'll take Lane Kiffin, but you take Lane Kiffin and you let 4 years go by and you still ain't made the playoffs, you still ain't won a conference championship, then all of a sudden Lane Kiffin ain't good enough. So I find the whole thing very interesting because if you're Ole Miss, you're an idiot to fire the best coach you've ever had. But if you're Florida and LSU, what do you do? Because if you wait and the guy stays in Oxford, then all the big time coaches have done been hired. And Okie Light, I guess it depends on what you consider the market. Because to me, the word market is a coach that's currently unemployed. Hey there, Singer Baba. Glad to have you here all the way from India. Thank you for checking in from India. To me, market means an available coach that's currently unemployed. And I just don't think there's a lot of great available coaches right now on the market, I would say. Since James Franklin took the job in Blacksburg, I think the best available coach right now on the market is Brian Kelly. I know LSU ran him off, but if you look at Brian Kelly's track record, he won at Grand Valley State, he won at Central Michigan, he won at Cincinnati, he won at Notre Dame, and he won at LSU. The man was winning almost 10 games a year until this year. So it's not like he was a failure at LSU. He wasn't. They just thought he was going to come there and go right to the playoffs and compete for a national championship. And then when that didn't happen, they said, wait a minute, we want this guy gone. But it's not like he was going 6-6 LSU. He wasn't. So I think if your definition of the market is available coaches who are currently unemployed, it's Brian Kelly. But if your definition of the market is even coaches that are currently employed, to me, I guess I would have to go with Matt Rule, even though I don't know if Matt Rule would leave Nebraska. But there are some coaches that, to me, I just don't think are leaving their current program. And maybe I'm wrong because you never know, but I don't think Ryan Day is leaving Ohio State. I don't think Mike Elko's leaving Texas A&M. I don't think Joey McGuire is leaving Texas Tech. I don't think Kalani Sitake is leaving BYU. I don't think Kyle Whittingham is leaving Utah. I don't think Kirby Smart's leaving Georgia. I don't think Dabo's leaving Clemson. And if I'm right on all those assessments, then all those guys are off the table. And if I didn't say Kyle Whittingham at Utah, include him as well, he's not leaving Utah. But if you're talking about coach that's ready to make a move, I'd say probably Matt Rule at Nebraska, because I think even though Nebraska's gotten better, if he doesn't improve there in a couple of years, they'll want him gone, because now that he's gotten better, they're going to want to start beating winning teams, and his record against ranked teams is absolutely awful. So after a while, when you're in Nebraska and you've been as bad as you've been for 20 years, you're satisfied at getting at 8 wins. And then when you get to 8 wins, all of a sudden, that ain't good enough. So I think if the right program comes along, Nebraska with Matt Rule, and maybe you could say Manny Diaz at Duke, but I don't know if he would ever get an offer from a bigger program. And I know Duke football is not what you call a big program, but he can stay at Duke and go 8-4, 7-5 every year and coach there like David Cutcliffe did, as long as he wants to. But he also had a bigger job with Miami, and although I think that would have worked out, I think Miami ran him off too soon. But nevertheless, he coached there, didn't work out. So when you've already had an offer and a coaching job at a bigger program and it didn't work out, I don't know if bigger programs will come your way. But I don't think Lincoln Riley is leaving USC unless they fire him. I don't think Dan Lanning is leaving Oregon. I don't think Marcus Freeman is leaving Notre Dame. I don't think Rhett Lashley is leaving SMU. So a lot of these coaches, I personally believe, are where they're going to be unless they're fired. I don't think they'll leave their current program unless they're fired. So I could see Matt Rule leaving Nebraska if the right job comes along. He wouldn't leave for the same level of job, but for a bigger job, I could see him leaving. And then I forget his name, but the head coach at Tulsa. And Okie Light, you should know, being from that area, but I can't think of his name off the top of my head. But the coach at Tulsa, I believe, is going to be a big-time coach at a big-time program coming up in the next 3 or 4 years, depending on, what job he's waiting on. I also think Wake Forest's coach is really, really good, but I don't think he's ready to make a move yet because it's his first year in Winston-Salem. But you're talking about a guy that's been a winner everywhere he's coached. And, Wake Forest has had back-to-back awful seasons. And then he comes there his first year, and he's got Robbie Ashford at quarterback, and there's a chance Wake Forest might win 10 games. So the only reason I'm not putting him on my list is because it's his first year, and I don't think he'll go to Wake Forest for 1 year and leave. But if he keeps doing at Wake Forest what he's done this year, I think he'll be gone in the next 2 or 3 seasons. And Todd Lamb, that's his name. I knew it was something Lamb, but I was thinking of the old Furman coach, the old Mercer coach named Bobby Lamb. I know that wasn't right. Todd Lamb, you are correct. By the way, Todd, what an awesome name. When your mama loves you, she names you Todd. Hey there, Eddie. Glad to have you here on this Thursday night. Eddie, tonight we've been talking about Lane Kiffin, so I'm glad you joined in the conversation. First time in a long time that I've got nothing written down. I'm not even doing a dad joke. I'm just discussing Lane Kiffin because, admittedly, I worked today, and since I got home, I've been with family, so I have not checked in 3 or 4 hours. But the last I checked, Lane Kiffin was still the coach at Ole Miss. So that's why I wanted to do a video about him, because the whole thing is fascinating. Because if the rumors are true, and in this situation they probably are, the Ole Miss AD has told Lane Kiffin he has 1 week to come to him and tell him he's staying at Ole Miss, and if he doesn't, he's getting fired. So if you're the Ole Miss AD, you're a complete buffoon if you fire the best coach you've ever had, because if Ole Miss beats Mississippi State, Lane Kiffin will have 50 wins in 5 years at Ole Miss. And no coach has ever won 50 games in 5 years at Ole Miss. So if Lane Kiffin does that and then you fire him, you're an absolute idiot. And I know you want a coach that's committed, and you feel like he's not committed because otherwise he wouldn't be out interviewing at other schools. But he's winning 10 games a year. Nobody's ever done that. But at the same time, if you're Florida and LSU, how long do you wait? Hey there, Bomb Bomb, or Bomb Bim, glad to have you here, because if you're Florida and LSU and Lane Kiffin tells you, well, I'll come talk to y'all after the season, so you wait. Well, then you've got 25 other schools out there that are hiring coaches. So every other coach on your list could accept a job at one of those other schools while you wait on Lane Kiffin. And then the playoffs end, and then Lane Kiffin says, sorry, Florida. Sorry, LSU. I think I'll stay in Oxford. Then if you're Florida and LSU, what do you do now? Because you waited all that time on Lane Kiffin decided to stay where he is, and now you can't hire a big-time coach because they've all been hired. So now you're stuck with everybody else. So now you're going to have to go from, Lane Kiffin all the way down to the 20th guy on your list, because everybody in between has already taken a job. So if you're Florida and LSU, if Lane Kiffin doesn't come to you in the next 2 or 3 days and say, hey, I want this job, how long do you wait? Because there's other great coaches that are waiting in the wings that might take another job, thinking that Lane Kiffin's coming to Florida. Lane Kiffin's coming to LSU. So if you're Florida and LSU, how long do you wait? But if you're Ole Miss, even if Lane Kiffin doesn't come to you in the next week and say, I'm staying, you can't fire the guy. I know he's never won a meaningful game. He's never won a conference championship. I get that. But he's still done more for your program than anybody's ever done. So, you can't get rid of the guy. It reminds me of years and years and years ago, and I couldn't begin to tell you what the exact year was. But this was back when Boston College had an actually average football team. I mean, this year they're awful. But they used to be decent back in the Matt Ryan days. And after that, Boston College had a lot of 8 or 9 win seasons. They had a coach named Tom O'Brien. Well, Tom O'Brien left Chestnut Hill and went to coach at NC State. And if my timeline's correct, the very next coach after Tom O'Brien was a guy named Jeff Jagodzinski. And if I'm not mistaken, Jeff Jagodzinski coached Boston College, I think, for 3 years. It wasn't very long, but I think he won about 8 games a year while he was there. Well, there was another program that had a coaching vacancy, and the rumor got out that Jeff Jagodzinski was going to go interview for that job. Well, the Boston College AD told him, "We want a coach that's dedicated. We want a coach that's all in. We want a coach that's committed. We want a coach that we know is here long term. If you go interview for that job or any other job, I'm going to fire you." I think it was the Jets job, but don't quote me on that because Jeff Jagodzinski had came from the NFL. And then he went back to the NFL as assistant coach, never a head coach. But anyway, even after the AD told Jeff Jagodzinski that, Jeff Jagodzinski went and he actually interviewed for the job and he got fired. So the Boston College AD did exactly what he said he was going to do, and he fired the guy because Jeff Jagodzinski interviewed for another job. So he kept his word. He did what he said he would do, just like he said he would do. Hey there, Post. Glad to have you here. But, sometimes it's great to have a coach that's committed, but at the same time, even if Lane Kiffin's not committed, you can't fire a guy that's doing more for your program than anybody has ever done. But, it would be nice to have coaches that are committed, but you can't expect coaches that are committed when you don't have players that are committed. You had players that are committed, but now with all these NIL deals, these players come to you, and after 1 year, if they get offered more money by some other school, they're leaving. So if a player's not going to commit, then most coaches aren't going to commit. Now, most coaches, once you get a job at a big-time Power 4 program, you're not leaving. But if you're at a small Power 4 program, you will. If you're at a Group of 5 program, you will. But for most coaches, once you get a job at one of the blue blood college football programs, you're not leaving. So that's every coach's dream. And then once you get there, you're set. You're not leaving unless they run you off. Other than that, you're there until you retire. So if I find it very interesting that Lane Kiffin coaches and every program wants him, but yet as long as he's coached, he's never won a conference championship. He's never been to the playoffs. So, Lane Kiffin has not proven he can win a meaningful game, but yet every program wants him. I don't understand it. So this whole thing's fascinating to me because it would be amazing to see Ole Miss fire a coach that's given them the most success they've ever had. But I'd also like to see Florida and LSU wait until after the playoffs because they think Lane Kiffin's coming there. And then Lane Kiffin says, "I think I'll stay in Oxford." Well, then by that time, every big-time coach is gone. So if you're LSU in Florida, who do you start scrambling for? Who would be next on your list? Because James Franklin's already off the table. But there are other coaches that are out there for now. But, if you wait till the middle of January, they may not be there. So this whole thing to me is very, very, very fascinating. But any thoughts on this, please feel free to let me know. I've enjoyed all the comments tonight. And Bomb Bim and Post and a few others, it was y'all's first time in the comment section. So hopefully it was y'all's first time being here, and hopefully you'll come back some other time. But until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much